And welcome. Glad everybody came. I feel like when we do that song, everybody gets so chill, and then when I say welcome, you're all like still chill, and that's fine. I like it. Let me pray while we're in this peaceful moment then. Lord, thank you so much for being present with us. And I pray, Lord, that you would stir in our hearts tonight a resolve not to settle for anything less than what you've asked us to, what you've got in store for us, this perfect plan for our lives that you have. And that what we do, we would do it with all of our hearts. That you would stir up in us a hunger and a thirst for righteousness. And that we would be people that are marked by our zeal. So Holy Spirit, would you even now come? We expect you to move. We are asking you to move. You're the God who works. You're the God who's alive and active. We believe that you still work miracles in our hearts. And so would you please do that tonight? Some of us are hurting tonight. Some of us are excited tonight. Some of us are just totally in the normal, mundane flow of life. But wherever we are coming from, just pray that you'd meet us here in Jesus' name. Amen. Cool. Well, so glad everybody's here. If you don't know me yet, my name is Josiah. I'm the pastor of Young Adults Ministry here now for 5 weeks, which has been fun. Before that, I still am, the student ministries pastor at the Olmsted Falls campus. Eventually, I'll just be the Young Adults pastor, but we're working on that. If I haven't met you yet, introduce yourself to me before you leave. I would love to get to know everybody in the room. And a couple of reminders about why we're even here. We're here to build friendships. So hang out with each other, reach out, go beyond your comfort zone and meet somebody new before you leave. We can just be so blessed by friends our age. And so that's one of the things that Young Adults is here for. We're also here to grow in our maturity in Christ. And so that's this part where I do some study throughout the week and then present to you what I think Jesus meant when he was speaking. And lately we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount. This is super wobbly and I'm worried about my computer. But we'll just have faith. Huh? See that? It's pretty bad. We're on the Sermon on the Mount. Last week we talked about the first 3 Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, and blessed are the meek. Right before that, I wanted to make you guys convinced that it's worthwhile studying the words of Jesus, and especially the words of Jesus, because he himself said that his words are a firm foundation for our lives, and if we obey them, if we hear them and obey them, it's like building our lives on a solid foundation, and life will go well for us, now and for eternity. If we hear his words, but we don't put them into practice, then it's like we have a shaky foundation. When the storms come, things won't go well for us, either now or in the life to come. So, let's listen up to the words of Jesus tonight. I'm going to go into the next part of the Beatitudes. We're going to look at 3 more tonight, but we're really going to focus in on the 4th one, which said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." That's Matthew 5:6. And what Jesus is saying in this beatitude, well, last time we weren't really talking about virtues. Do you remember I said that? We weren't really talking about things to aspire towards. Jesus wasn't really telling us to be in poverty, right? So when he said, "Blessed are the poor," he wasn't telling us to go try to be in poverty. What he was saying was the kingdom is wide open for everybody, no matter where you come from. And so being poor, mourning, and being oppressed, kind of a good way to understand that word meek and being oppressed or trampled on, those weren't really virtues. But tonight, we're going to look at some things that really are virtues. Jesus is telling us 3 things that we can really grow in, that we can really strive to get better at. And if we do, our lives are going to be so much richer. So tonight is a call to step forward and become these blessed ones. So blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. What Jesus is saying is that those who are blessed are the people who are deeply self-motivated to do things God's way. Has anybody ever been extremely hungry before? Not like I missed lunch and now it's a little bit past my dinner, but like really, really hungry before? Thankfully, I've never been without food for too long. But one day I'll tell you a little story. I was training to be able to run a half marathon a couple years ago. I didn't really want to compete in an actual half marathon that you have to pay for. I just wanted to get my body up to the point where I could run 13 miles. And so I spent like a whole summer and fall getting myself up to that point, and I had like a little spreadsheet, and I was working out like I could add a mile a week or something like that. Figured it all out, so I was working my way up, and one day I think I was at like the 9 or 10 mile mark where I could run 9 or 10 miles, and I didn't run very fast, so it took a good chunk of the afternoon to do that. And so I had it all planned out. The weather was perfect, totally perfect for a run that day, where you didn't have to like start out in pants or like a sweatshirt and then shed the sweatshirt halfway through. And it was just perfect. You could wear shorts, but it wasn't too hot. That kind of day, I had like worked my way up to it, but the problem was I didn't really I didn't really research at all like what you're supposed to be eating before long runs or like the nutritional aspect of it. So I'd been doing fine all the way up to this point. So this day I went out to run 10 miles, the Rocky River Nature Center trails, where some of you guys went this week, right? I just went around and around and around that loop. And I got to like mile 5, and I was like, I'm feeling a little bit hungry, but that's fine. I'm out here to like get in shape. Doesn't matter if I'm a little hungry. So I got to mile 7, and I was like, oof, I'm like feeling like a little bit weak. I'm so hungry. But I was like, I have 3 miles to go. I've already endured 7 miles. I can do 3 more. I've never had a problem before. So I just like pushed through, and it was hard. I remember how hard those 3 miles were. And I was just thinking like, it's supposed to be hard. It's running 10 miles, right? It's not supposed to be easy. If this was supposed to be easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So I'm talking myself into it. I can do it. I'm going to run these 10 miles. And I finished them. I finished the 10 miles, and that day, Sarah, my wife in the back, no wave. Sarah was picking me up. For whatever reason, she dropped me off at the park. And she was going to pick me up at the park, and so we had it all timed out. She was right in time, and I was like desperate for food. But she said, the kids want to go down to the river for a few minutes, is that okay? And I was like, sure, that's fine. But I didn't really realize what was going on in my body. And so they left, and they were all the way across the street, and something in me was just like, emergency level, like, you need food. And I've never had this feeling before, but I was just like, I would have hurt something for food. It felt like I was like digging through everything in our car, like through the glove box, like through the side compartments, underneath the chair. I was like just looking for food. I needed food in my body, and so I found like a little applesauce that little babies suck on, and some fruit snacks, and they were just like inhaled, like, now I need more. Where's more food? And there was no more food, and they were probably only gone for 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour, and I felt like I was dying. Like, I was so hungry. And so I think when Jesus is preaching here to the people that are around him, remember he is teaching the desperate people. These are people that had come to him because they needed healing, they needed their demons delivered from them, and his first words to them are, blessed are the impoverished, right? So I bet you there were people in the crowd that were feeling like similar real hunger feelings, like actual hunger, not just I'm feeling snacky because it's 11 o'clock at night and there is ice cream in my fridge kind of hunger, but the real, like, my body actually needs nutrition, and I would probably break a law to get it, you know? So there were probably people in the crowd feeling that, and Jesus has already said, you're blessed, you're blessed, you're blessed. In my kingdom, you're going to inherit the earth, you're going to inherit the kingdom. And then he goes to like that vulnerable place of hunger, and he said, blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be filled. And so like this deep hunger he's describing would have resonated with the people he was preaching to. Probably more than most of us in America that haven't really very often felt true hunger. And so some of us have, though. I shouldn't make a blanket statement like that, but there were probably a greater percentage of people in his crowd that really resonated with that idea. And when you're hungry like that, you're going to do what it takes to get food in your belly. And when you're desperately thirsty, you're going to do what it takes to get water. And so what he's saying is like, the people who are going to go after God's ways, righteousness just means like doing things God's way or living rightly. People who are going to go after that with all their hearts are going to be blessed. So he's like, remember, he's establishing a kingdom, and he's going to be the king, and all these ragtag group of people are going to be his followers, and he's saying, you guys have entrance, and not only entrance, but inheritance in my kingdom. So he's telling them what kind of characteristics are celebrated in this kingdom, what kind of culture he's building. And it's those who are zealous, who really, really want righteousness, who really want to do things God's way, that are blessed. So like, he's the leader, and he's got these followers, and he's like, if you want to please me, if you want to do this the right way, I need you to want this. I need you to really, really want this. Like, so bad that it feels like hunger and thirst. Maybe a similar parallel, like, I don't know if you guys have anybody teachers in here? Maybe not. Have you taught anything? I know there was one, but she's not here tonight. I used to teach guitar lessons, and there would be some students that didn't really care about guitar. Their parents made them come, and it was kind of like, it was not very fun to teach them. Right? Like, you're trying to convince them to practice, but you know they're not going to practice. They're not making any progress. They're not getting any better. It's just not that fun to teach somebody who's not hungry for it, right? But then you get the students. I had this like 11-year-old girl who would spend every evening watching YouTube videos, practicing, making her fingers faster, stretching her fingers, getting better at chords, writing songs, and she was just hungry for it, so that within like a year, I couldn't even teach her anything. I'm not that great at guitar anyways, but I didn't have anything left to teach this 11-year-old girl because she was so hungry to learn, and it was so fun. Like, I was inspired by her passion to learn the guitar. And I think Jesus is looking at this group of people and saying, like, I want the hungry ones. I want the ones who really want this. I want the ones who are really, really ready to do anything it takes to become righteous. And Jesus is still saying that to us today. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who are self-motivated deeply with this drive to do the things that God wants you to do, who are marked by that hunger. I love so much what Jesus doesn't say here. He doesn't say, blessed are the righteous. Did you catch that? Like, you'd think he would say, blessed are the righteous, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? If he said that, though, it would be contrary to the rest of what he just said, because that, like, not everybody can be perfect, right? Actually, nobody can be perfect. And so it would be like the kingdom isn't really open to anybody. But what he said is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and that means the kingdom is open for anybody, because anybody can want it, right? We can all strive to be righteous. We can all desire, we can all hunger for righteousness, no matter where we're starting from. Whether we're deeply ingrained in terrible habits, whether we're a terribly evil person and everybody knows it, or whether we hide our evil a little better than that. No matter what, we can all grow in our hunger for righteousness. So the kingdom is wide open. Isn't that awesome? Any of us can cultivate this hunger for righteousness inside of us. So when we fall, we can get back up and say, Lord, I'm still hungry. I still want to learn. I know I'm not righteous yet, but that wasn't your requirement. Your requirement was that I want this and that I go after this. When we press on, we're taking steps forward in our faith. And then you will be filled. There's this deep joy and satisfaction in pursuing this life of righteousness. When we pursue life God's way, we are fulfilled. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it to the fullest. Isn't that amazing? That's like he came from heaven to earth in order that you and me could have an abundant life. And the reason that works is because he actually created us. So he's the one that has the blueprint for our lives. And if we live according to that blueprint, we will thrive because he's a good God. He's a good creator. And he gave you a plan for your life that's going to be abundant. That's going to be fulfilling. That's going to be so good. Not always going to be easy, not going to be pain-free, but it's going to be fulfilling in every sense of that word. And when we live according to this righteous plan, God's will for our life, we step into that fulfillment, the most abundant life that you can imagine. And actually, the reason it's so abundant, the evidence for it being so abundant, is that heaven is the place where God's will is completely done all the time, right? Heaven is the place where Jesus is king, and everybody in heaven is doing things God's way, according to God's plan. Remember, Eden was that way too before the fall. Eden was this perfect place. And was it beautiful? Yes, it was beyond what we can imagine. And heaven is going to be more fulfilling, more joyful, more beautiful than anybody can imagine. And it's because we're living according to the will of God. And so we can actually start that now. When Jesus says, your kingdom come, that we should pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, what he's saying is that we are surrendering to his will, and when we do that, heaven comes and we start to taste it on earth. It's this weird mixture because earth is there's still all this fallenness, and even in our own hearts we still have our sin. We're not righteous yet. We're hungering and thirsting for righteousness. But so he is making us righteous, but heaven begins to grow in our hearts when we begin to step into walking in God's will. And so when he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled, that's what he's talking about, this fullness of life. So the next two Beatitudes in Matthew 5, if anybody wanted to flip to their Bibles, you could. It's Matthew 5, verses 6, 7, and 8 that we're looking at tonight. The next two Beatitudes tell us about what that righteousness looks like. How do we be righteous? What is righteousness? And so if those who hunger and thirst for righteousness are blessed, it would be helpful to know what is righteousness. What does God actually require? What is the life that God wants us to live? And the next two help us see that. So blessed are those who are merciful. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy is the next one. Mercy includes, it's this really cool word. Hebrew is a really interesting language where it has way less words than English. And so when we're trying to translate Hebrew into English, we can usually pick 3 or 4 words to describe one Hebrew word. And so this word mercy in Hebrew, it includes both intentional acts of compassion. So mercy includes intentional acts of compassion, which is like going out of your way to show compassion to somebody who's in need. So when somebody's stranded because a bullet went through their tire, you go and help them out because you have compassion. That may have happened to somebody in the room this week. We don't know. But so when your heart is broken over something that somebody is going through and you reach out towards them and you show them love, that's mercy. So Jesus is saying, blessed are the merciful, those who are filled with compassion and act on it in concrete ways. That help people emotionally, that help people physically, that help people spiritually, that just help people when they're in need. Blessed are you. And it also includes forgiving sins. So we know that concept. Maybe we're even more familiar with that concept with mercy. Have mercy on me, right? Please don't have revenge on me. Have mercy on me. Forgive me for what I've done. And so this word mercy that Jesus is talking about when he said, blessed are the merciful, includes both. It includes this intentional, concrete actions of compassion, and it also includes offering forgiveness when people ask us, and making wrongs right by saying, I will forgive you, yes. So mercy is this beautiful word, and it's of righteousness. So blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. It's really an interesting study that we'll get into in the next several weeks, but not today, about those who receive mercy are those who offer mercy. How inappropriate it is for us to say, yeah, God, please forgive me. I know I need it. I don't deserve it. Thank you for forgiving me. But then not offering that to somebody else. Or for receiving the compassionate mercy of God and the help in times of need from him, and then not offering that to other people is just it's not right. Right? So Jesus regularly says, forgive so that you can be forgiven, or show mercy and then you will receive mercy as well. So those who are merciful will be shown mercy. So part of this righteousness that we are to hunger and crave for includes being really good at showing love to other people, being really good at showing compassion to other people, being really quick to forgive. So if we're craving righteousness, what we crave inside of us is to cultivate this compassion, this love, and this quickness to forgive others. And second, the next beatitude is blessed are the pure in heart. I've been thinking about this one this week because it's really, really, it articulates something about the Christian faith that's really like central, but it's maybe easy for us to forget. And it's blessed are the pure in heart. So heart is another complicated word in the Bible. And when this is translated from the Greek, it usually means, it's trying to give the concept of what we call our true self, our psyche at our deepest level, the place where our emotions are, the place where our will is, and where our intellect, like where we think, that part of us that thinks, that makes decisions, that feels, and that we would call our inner life, right? So the heart, so being pure in heart is being pure in those deep places, those secret places of who you are, those places that people can't really see about you until they really get to know you, and nobody really knows all of it except you and God, right? There's some things in our hearts that we would like, sometimes we would even love for people to know about us, but we can't. Like, the deeper and deeper you get to know somebody, you realize how deep people are, right? And so we all have this depth inside of us. And what it's saying is, blessed are those who are pure from the depths, from that place, deep in your heart. And so the people who are pure in heart are described beautifully later in Matthew chapter 6, which we'll probably get to in a couple weeks. The pace I'm going, maybe a couple of months, I don't know. But the people that are pure in heart, Jesus describes as the kind of people who aren't praying like on the street corners for everybody to see, but who go into their bedrooms when nobody knows about it and spends time with God just because they love God, right? The people who aren't fasting so that other people will say, wow, you're really spiritual. You fast? That's amazing. But people who fast and don't even tell people about it because they just are pursuing God because they love God. So the pure in heart are those who don't even let other people see. They're not doing it for anything external. No accolades, no applause. The only reason they're pursuing righteousness is for God's sake, because he's somebody to be loved and you love him. And so you express that love through seeking him from the purity and the depth of your heart. So those who hunger and thirst for righteousness are hungering and thirsting for that kind of relationship with God, that knows him so well, that loves him so deeply, that you're just going to pursue him no matter what anybody says, no matter what anybody else around you is doing, no matter what. You're just pursuing God because he's worth pursuing, because he's so good, and everything in your heart is saying, I want that. I want God. I just want God. And so the person who wants God because they love God is the pure in heart. So the righteousness that we're hungering for is hungering for mercy, to be a merciful person, and to be a person who's just has integrity through and through, who's just the purest, sincerest, most genuine person seeking after God alone. Really, it can be boiled down to loving God and loving others, right? So the righteousness that we're pursuing has to include loving other people and the sincere love for God. And it really doesn't have much at all to do with the outward stuff that we do or don't do. It has everything to do with what's in the depths of our heart. But it starts with a hunger. It starts with like this deep desire that like, I need God, right? I need righteousness. Just like if you needed food, you would do whatever it takes. So I think we can nurture passion in we can nurture this passionate hunger for sincere righteousness that blesses others, right? We can cultivate inside of us this craving for righteousness, and the kind of righteousness that shows love for people and that shows love for God. And here's 3 ways that I think we can cultivate that righteousness. The first, that hunger for righteousness. The first one, I think, is to gain a vision for it. Have you ever stopped and thought and made yourself think, what would my life look like if I took some serious steps for a whole year towards God? If if my character grew, if I became a more dependable person, a person with greater integrity, or if I got rid of this sin and this sin that I know is keeping me down, or if I was able to be more others-centered, or if I was to be able to love with more depth, or forgive more quickly, or to be more compassionate, or to cultivate a love inside of me that for God that was just like all-consuming. Have you ever like stopped to think about your life that way? Like, what if? I think it's really, really healthy for us to imagine what could be. Like, what could my life look like? And we don't even have to ask, like, how to get there. That's not even what I'm asking tonight. Because Jesus isn't really asking. He didn't say, blessed are the righteous, right? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So you don't have to figure out how to get there, but to cultivate this vision of, like, what could be prayerfully. Even ask the Lord, like, what do you think, like, what do you want to work on me? And give me a vision for the man that I could be when I'm 35, or the woman I could be when I'm 45, or next year, or even next month, like just to cultivate a vision for what it looks like. I think we can do this through prayer, like I just said. Ask the Lord, and He'll speak to you, and He'll show you ways that you can grow, and give you this vision for what you're striving for. You can do it through journaling. I think we get to know ourselves so well through journaling. Not everybody, but a lot of people. That's super effective to write down this vision for what life could look like. Through reading the Bible and even biographies of really righteous people who did amazing things, you can start to catch a vision for what your own life could look like. And if you're having a really hard time picturing, like, I don't even know how to grow, I don't know where to grow, I thought maybe I was already doing really good, that Jesus should have said, blessed are the righteous, because that's me. Maybe you're already thinking like that you're fine. If you're having a hard time wrapping your mind around like growth in general, I'd say like getting a mentor would be a really good thing. To find somebody to connect with that's older than you, who's walked with Jesus longer than you, that can help you see what you can't see in the mirror. Like stuff like from another person's perspective that can either challenge you or encourage you in rich ways to grow. If you're like, Pastor Josiah, I would love, you don't have to call me Pastor Josiah, I don't know why I said that, just call me Josiah. If you're like, Josiah, I would love that, but I don't know anybody who can mentor me, talk to me. I would love to connect you. I don't know who, but by faith, I'm going to say I'd love to connect you with somebody older in the church that there's already been a few people that have come up to me, and I'm sure if I asked around, I could connect you with mentors that would love to help you walk more closely with Jesus. So if that's something tugging at your heart, talk to me. I would love to connect you. So the first one, gain a vision for righteousness in your life, and hunger will grow. Second, forsake everything else. Romans 12, 1 and 2 is a great verse to go to for this. It's that we would stop conforming to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind, and then we'll be able to test and approve of God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. Like I just said, His will for your life is good, it's pleasing, and perfect, but what it takes is getting rid of like the conformity to the patterns of evil in the world. So like if there's anything that you're spending most of your time thinking about other than God, try to like consciously say to forsake that. Like if you lay awake at night thinking about how you're going to make more money, or how you're going to get revenge on somebody, or how you're going to make people like you better, or whatever you're pursuing first, if it's not righteousness, forsake it, right? It doesn't mean that we like don't try to make money. It doesn't mean that we don't try to make friends. It means that we seek God first and His righteousness, and everything else will be given to you as well. Jesus promised that. So seek Him first, forsaking everything else, saying like nothing else matters. I'm hungry, right? Like I just need righteousness in my life. And then the third one, I'm reminded of a psalm that says, taste and see that the Lord is good. And so if we're hungry for righteousness, if you start down this path, you gain a vision for what it could look like, you start forsaking all the other things and pursuing God alone, you're going to start tasting how good He is. You don't have to take my word for it, that His will, His plan for your life is fulfilling, it's abundant, it's joyful. You're going to actually start experiencing it yourself. And then once you taste a little bit, then that hunger inside of you is going to rise up and you're going to say, I just want God. That's all I'm going to do the rest of my life is just seek God because He's so, so, so good. So go towards Him. And I would love for you to ask yourself for a second, like, would you say that your life is marked by a hunger for righteousness? Or is it more marked for hunger for other things? And when I ask myself that, I'm pretty convicted. Like, if I think about the hours in my week I spend thinking about other things, it's pretty convicting for me. I need to go to the Lord in prayer for more hunger in my own life. So I'm guessing there's probably some others in the room that do too. But how much of your life is marked by a hunger and a thirst for righteousness? And bring that to the Lord. And I want you to want it. Like, I really want you to want righteousness. Like, and I think that's what Jesus was saying too. He was saying, like, I'm not asking you to be good at this, not asking you to master this. I'm just asking you to want this. And I'm going to help you do the rest. He promises to walk with us, empower us, and fill us with his love, his joy, his peace, his patience, his kindness, his goodness, his faithfulness, his gentleness, and his self-control. And if that's not a life that everybody wants, I don't know what is. That's like such a beautiful life if it's marked by all of that. So I hope you guys want it. We're going to take a few minutes reflecting on a question. You can pop that up there, Jake. I think it's the discussion question that we're going to talk about. I want us to gain this vision for what our life could look like if we were just a few steps more righteous. Like, if we took a few steps more, like a few steps closer to God. What does that look like for your life? Not thinking about how to get there, just envisioning what could be if you could get there. Like, what is it? Are you a more selfless person? Are you a more generous person? Are you a more loving person? What is it? Is your prayer life rich and powerful? Are you starting to do miracles? I don't know. I don't know what you're going to imagine when you imagine your life at a few steps closer to God. But I want you to imagine it. And I want your imagination to go a little bit free. So the way I'm going to do this, I know there's two types of people in the room. Introverts and extroverts, right? And so some of you guys would much prefer to write this down and just in your own little space, to think through your vision for what your life could be, to put that on paper for the next 10 minutes. And I bet you there's some people in the room that would like to hash it out, discuss it out loud, talk it out, think out loud with somebody else. Or another group of people. So I'm going to put the extroverts who want to do that, and it doesn't even have to be it. Maybe just tonight you feel like doing it on your own or with a group of people. It doesn't have to be your personality type. But if you feel like talking with somebody else through this, would you raise your hand for me? Because I would love to see how many people actually want to talk it out. Okay, we have and I knew I could have the ones who wanted to talk it out raise their hand because you'd be less shy to do that, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Awesome. So we'll do 2 tables then. And perfect. We got 2 empty tables. So could the 2 of you guys, or all of you guys, you could just come to these empty tables. And these are the discussion tables. 1 and 2. There should be 4 of you at each. So you can move now. That's great. I'm going to put on some instrumental music. Jake's going to put on some instrumental music. And then you guys can go for it. Just kind of talk through what does your life look like, or write it out. If you're the ones writing, in your cup there is paper, pens, and colored pencils. So go ahead and grab the paper's actually in the cup too, so you can pull the paper out and start or maybe you brought some with you. But spend a few minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, reflecting on this question. Any questions about it? Cool. Go for it.